So what is going on, guys? I'm Black Amazing. Welcome back to another video on the channel where today I wanted to talk about what is next for Call of Duty Zombies. Vanguard is now over. We know we are having no game from any studio next year. Well, that's what some of the leaks tell us anyway. The next mainline title is supposed to be Treyarch, but it won't be coming out until 2024. So that means a big break from Call of Duty Zombies. A lot of time to reflect, a lot of time for them to work on their next game. But this also leaves us a lot of time to speculate what they could be making. What could Treyarch's next iteration of COD Zombies be like, because we know 100% it will include zombies. We were left on a cliffhanger at the end of Black Ops Cold War Zombies. What we learned from that is that the story will continue at least in the 1990s, and from other things we've heard, that's when Treyarch's next game will be taking place, which is pretty interesting because we haven't had a COD game that takes place in the 90s yet, which hopefully just from the setting alone, because we know the setting of a COD game determines the style of maps that we see in COD Zombies most of the time when we don't have time travel. So just from that, COD 2024 Zombies should be different. But what I've done for this video is compiled a bunch of things that I want to see in Treyarch's next Zombies mode, looking at what they did wrong in the past, right in the past, and also some new things that I'd like to see get implemented into Zombies as well. So let's get into this. Now, the easy thing to say would be Treyarch should just go back to the old days of Zombies, the glory days of BO3. Some people might consider the glory days were BO2. Some people say Cold War was. But for me, BO3 was, just because from a community point of view, that was when it was the biggest. But if we break down every single little thing, because we've had quite a few Zombies games now, from World at War all the way back to 2008, we had BO1, BO2, 3, 4, Cold War, and now Vanguard. There are a lot of reference points for Treyarch to take from these past games. They've had quite a bit of experience by now, so they should know what parts of Zombies games to take and add into COD 2024 and what parts to leave behind. But just giving my opinion, the first thing I've put is I want to see original maps back in Zombies. A lot of people get confused when I say this. There is the big argument nowadays of reused assets in Zombies, Treyarch taking maps from the campaign, multiplayer, and whilst yes, this has always been a thing in Zombies, that's how it started all the way back in 2008 World at War. If we look at every map in that game, Nacht, Verrucht, Shinonuma, Derice, they were all campaign maps, some more changed than others, but then as we evolved through Zombies, that became less and less of a thing. As we went on to BO2, we had maps such as Mob of the Dead, which was unique. We also had Origins, Die Rise, Transit, Buried, all maps made specifically for Zombies. BO3 we had Shadows of Evil, Dreisendrache, Gorod. BO4, for the Chaos side, all of those maps were unique. For the Ether side, they were reused Zombies maps, although that was intentional. That was a big part of the story. But then as we come to Cold War and Vanguard especially, we started to see a lot of maps where, just like the earlier days, it was very noticeable that they were from the campaign and multiplayer. So Zombies kind of took this turn where it evolved and then de-evolved in terms of, I guess, uniqueness or originality of maps. This was something they did in the beginning when Zombies were small. We then progressed out of that phase and went back into it in Cold War and Vanguard. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but one thing that I've always loved about Zombies was how unique these maps were, how different a Zombies map was from a multiplayer map or a campaign level. If you look at the aesthetics of Dreisendrache, the environment of Mob of the Dead or Shadows of Evil, and you compare that to how maps look nowadays in Cold War and Vanguard, where I don't think anyone's gonna disagree that these maps are a lot more plain and boring. So that would be my first change, and that's probably gonna happen anyway, or I would hope so, just because they're getting a lot more time to develop COD 2024 Zombies. So hopefully with more time, that means they can actually fully develop maps specifically for Zombies instead of having to take parts from other areas. The next change I want to see is quite controversial, even to myself, because I was thinking about it and I was like, I kind of do want to see this return back to Zombies, but at the same time I don't, and that's custom loadouts. Now let me just put both points across. When I first heard about custom loadouts being introduced into Zombies, I was really happy because this was something I wanted for quite a long time. I'd always wondered whether it would be cool if we could just choose our own loadout at the beginning of the game, just like kind of multiplayer. That was added in Cold War, and whilst I do like it, it is nice just to be able to get in the game and already have the weapon you want from round one. This does also make things such as wall weapons and the mystery box kind of redundant now. I rarely use the mystery box in Zombies anymore. The only time I do is when I want a second weapon or I want the wonder weapon, but it's not really a necessity like it used to be in Zombies. And I also never really buy wall weapons anymore, again because I've got the weapon I want from the get-go. So custom loadouts, to me at least, make two what were really cool features about Zombies war weapons in the mystery box, just not very useful anymore. If you think back in the older days, these were vital things. These were what made zombies stand out from multiplayer and what made it unique. There is also the argument that custom loadouts make zombies easier, not having to build yourself up, starting off with a starting weapon, even though you can do that if you want to. It's not forced on you anymore, therefore it does make those early rounds a lot easier. Personally, that aspect doesn't bother me too much just because I'm not great at zombies anyway, but that is something to think about. And thankfully, I don't have to make that tough decision because I don't even know myself if I would remove custom loadouts. It does kind of feel at this point, if you were to do that, it's a step backwards. But I can't deny I do miss having to start out with a crap weapon, having to build your way up, and having to use war weapons and the mystery box to get yourself through a game of zombies. It does get pretty stale now when you are using the same weapon all of the time. It takes a little bit of that mystery away, having to use different weapons from the box and also trying different ones out. And also, to go along with this, you could also put in armor. There is no denying that armor makes zombies a lot easier, which goes back to what I was saying, and it does make it a hell of a lot easier. But again, would I remove it from the game? It's a difficult one because, just like custom loadouts, it also feels like removing armor would be a step backwards. But then I also think, was it a necessary addition? No. If it was never there, would anyone be asking for armor? No. So that's probably the least thing to worry about. I wouldn't be too bothered if it did return or if it didn't. That just comes down to your preference of difficulty. One thing that COD 2024 Zombies definitely needs to do is just forget everything that you did in Vanguard to do with the perks. That whole perk system in Vanguard needs to be scrapped, and they just need to reintroduce what we saw in Cold War with the perk system. Next up, a big one that I've mentioned quite a lot is we have to have, and this is so important for me, a set cast of characters. Just like a lot of things here, having a set cast of characters was what made this mode unique. It's what differentiated it from multiplayer. I miss having a set of characters, and then as we progress on through maps, we learn more and more about them. We gain a relationship with them. Because we don't have set cast in zombies anymore, it also means we don't see celebrities, which again was another thing that I loved. The Mob of the Dead cast, the Shadows of Evil characters, the Call of the Dead crew. We don't see any of this anymore because we now have operators in zombies. Since Cold War came out on D Machine, the first few days after I played with them, I said these operators in zombies are just lifeless. And that's still the case a year or two later in Vanguard. Even if you aren't interested in the zombie story, if you don't care about that and you just want to play the game, I still feel like this is a huge problem because they make the game a lot more fun just from the stuff they say. And as I mentioned, it does also impact the story, the way that the story used to be told, especially in BO4 and BO3, a little bit of BO2 as well, but mainly 3 and 4. A lot of the story could be told through quotes that are character said. You can't do that with operators, meaning Treyarch have to find other ways to tell the story, and I think that's impacted it. To me, the story in Cold War and Vanguard just wasn't as interesting as it used to be, and that was partly down to the way it was being presented. Now it's just told through intel and radios and cutscenes when we do get them, which is rarely, but a massive part of how the story used to be told was through quotes by our characters, and you really need a set cast to do that. So Treyarch have got to do that in the next COD. Honestly, can I see it happening? Probably not, but I don't think it will be down to Treyarch's choice. It will be down to Activision just because operators earn so much money. Removing them from zombies would remove a big portion of Activision's revenue. People buy operators just to play in zombies. I think if Treyarch were allowed to, they would create a set cast again, but I don't think they are, so even though I think that must return, I'm not too sure if it will. I did just kind of touch up on it. We also need to see intro and outro cutscenes return. In Cold War, we had intro cutscenes for some maps, such as D Machine, but we didn't have intro cutscenes for other maps like Forsaken, and we also had outros in that game for some maps like Mauer, but we didn't have one for D Machine, whereas we used to get an intro and an outro for every map. Again, that's probably more of a time and budget thing, but hopefully we start seeing that again. And then a few more things, the first one being Easter eggs. Now, I'm not talking about main quests, we did have them. Vanguard, not so much, especially at the beginning, but for the most part, we still do. However, it does feel, I don't have the stats for this, but it feels like there aren't as many side Easter eggs anymore. Again, that might just be a time thing, so with them having 3 years to work on the next zombies, 2.5, I should think we'd get more side Easter eggs than we've gotten lately. And also, and this might surprise you, I do want to see Outbreak return. However, I want to see it totally, revamped, overhauled from the version that we saw in Cold War. I think that was probably a decent or okay basis, but hopefully they can learn from that and introduce a version of Outbreak that is quite a bit different to what it was. But I would like to see a mode like that return, a big open world style zombies. And for this portion I also put what are they to do with some of the new features that were introduced in Vanguard, such as Covenants? Should they return in COD 2024? And then another little section I've written here, which is something I don't really think people think about too much nowadays, but what about some new features in Zombies? Because it does feel that Zombies doesn't really change that much. I don't know, there are just a couple of new additions I'd like to see in Zombies. The first one being new perks. I can't remember the last time we had a new perk in Zombies. It was D-Machine. I can't remember what that perk was called, but before that, excluding BO4, it was Widow's Wine. So compared to the early days, we don't actually get many new perks in Zombies now. I'd like to see them like they used to do, at least give us a couple of new perks. One in every new DLC map would be ideal. That also goes for new power-ups. We have had some lately, but they haven't been too, I guess, innovative. Also, side modes, I want to see them come back, such as Grief, another thing that we don't have in Zombies anymore. That also goes hand in hand with co-op. I don't know, but I was just thinking the other day, it doesn't feel like that co-op aspect is there in Zombies now. It feels more like a solo game, whereas if I think back to the BO2 days or BO3, before that BO1, I felt like I was playing Zombies a lot more with other people, not just friends that I personally knew, but randomers online. I don't feel like I or a lot of people actually jump into random games anymore on Zombies. Why that is, I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but I do think side modes such as Grief would help with that. And finally, custom mutations, a feature that I actually liked from Black Ops 4. I mean, it's there, it's an option. You can't really go wrong with being able to customize your own game. It's not an official match, you can't do Easter eggs with it, it's just to have fun. So I'd like to see custom mutations come back, and I think all of that combined would make COD 2024 Zombies an epic game. But of course, it's all just my opinion. Let me know in the comment section below what you would do. What would you bring in from older games? What wouldn't you? And what new things would you implement? Drop a like rating if you've enjoyed. Make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date with the latest videos on the channel, and I will see you all in the next one. Until then, goodbye.